So my reflection right now is a bit of a change in tone. So you'll have to kind of ride with me on this one. I wrote this reflection a little more than a year ago after sitting a 4-day online meditation retreat with Spirit Rock. We were deep in the pandemic and it felt like it would never end. And there was suffering everywhere. And the ideas and practices of Buddhism did help me find some relief. I call this piece Fear Baby. Sometimes I find tucked deep below my navel, at the bottom of my belly, a tightening, a worrying, a knot of fear, stiff and dark. It waits for me there, quietly. It has no sharp edges, nothing frayed or unraveled. It doesn't poke, it doesn't kick, it doesn't yell. It just sits deep and settled and unsettling. And sometimes when I stop for a moment to breathe, I can't quite get what I need from the air. The oxygen fills me up only so much. The clutching inside keeps me from fully engaging my core. I sit with it. I look at it with curiosity. It doesn't budge. It is settled in for the long ride. As much as I try to open it up, to set it free, to melt it away, it isn't going anywhere. It is attached. I am attached to it. I try to focus on the feeling of my bottom on the chair and my feet on the floor, the rhythm of my breath as I inhale and exhale, the sun in the sky warming the spring air. But the slight tugging of fear against my brain, the small sinking of anxiety deep in my center can overtake the awareness of my breath and cloud out the feeling of warmth on my skin. And when that happens, I hold that fear close to my heart. I rock it. I whisper to it. I send it love and care. I carry it safe against my soul. And when I can find a way to sit with it, be with it, and let it be, without trying to make it anything else than what it is, then sometimes I can climb my way out of the dark and into the sun and set it free.
Thank you, Thomas, for the beautiful music, and thank you, Liz, for the powerful and meaningful reflection. I'd also like to thank Elisa Neep, who suggested this worship topic. I don't know if you can remember way back in the dark days of February when we had our pledge campaign. Her name was drawn as the one who could pick a worship topic. And Elisa showed mercy to me. She gave me 2 worship topics that I could choose from, but they were both so good, I'm going to do them both. I'm going to do one now, and I'm going to do the other one sometime in the fall. But Elisa kind of asked a question in her email to me, which I think is at the heart of a lot of us. Many Unitarian Universalists feel a lot of affinity and connection to Buddhism. And we like many of us like the non-theistic aspect of Buddhism, the idea, the emphasis in compassion and loving kindness. And then there's also some struggles we have with Buddhism. There's almost a deification, even though it's non-theistic, it's a deification of the Buddha. It's almost godlike. And then a personal struggle I have is the idea of reincarnation. I've explored a lot of Buddhism and I was very close to becoming a Buddhist, but I've always struggled with this idea of reincarnation. But Elisa pointed out, and probably the next thing was that this idea of non-attachment. Non-attachment is this biggest idea that we should not cling, we should not get too connected to things in our life because everything is impermanent. And so we get attached to things that are impermanent, things that are going to change, things that are going to disappear, things are going to lose. That is just going to amplify and cause even greater suffering through the disappointment that we connected with these things. And I think many of us in many religious traditions have, discouraged attachment to material goods. And I think many of us can understand that rationally, even if we can't quite get there emotionally. I know sometimes I still get excited when I buy something, especially if it's chocolate. But Elisa made things that the attachment to people, because we do get attached to these people that we love dearly, that are so important to us. They can be our parents, they can be our siblings, they can be our life partner, they can be our children. And it's hard not to get attached to them because we are so connected with them. And Unitarian Universalism encourages this connection. We actually place relationships, the relationships between us, between our community, between our higher power, between the universe, as one of the highest, most ultimate things of sacred value. So it's hard not to get attached to that. So what does non-attachment mean to those things? How can we have non-attachment to our parents, our loved ones, our children? And it's a really profound question. It's a tough question. It's a real challenge to Unitarian Universalists, because so much of our religion is emphasizing the importance and connection to these. And then in Buddhism, it's talking about this non-attachment. I think it's important to really understand what the Buddhists mean by non-attachment or detachment. They use both terms. And the Buddha says all phenomena are impermanent. All meetings end in parting. That can seem really depressing. It's true, but still depressing. But what Buddhism really encourages is you realize that attachment can lead to this idea of denial things are going to end, denial that all meetings will end. And it's dishonest with us, and that can amplify our disappointment when things do change, because sometimes people who are our close friends, we end up having a falling out, and maybe enemy's too strong a word, but we don't have the affection with them we once had. And sometimes maybe in the workplace, you have this person who you didn't get on well, but eventually you grow to become friends. So sometimes friends can become enemies, and enemies can become friends. So even our relationships, there's not any sense of permanent, even as people live. But what happens when people die? Those ones that we really, really love, when people die. And the Buddhists are fully aware of this. And the Buddha has a story that he tells regarding this. And it's about this young woman who gets married, and she has this child who she loves dearly. And then she loses her father. Her father dies. She's heartbroken. Then her mother dies. And she's even more heartbroken. And then her child takes ill, and she's really, really worried that her child's going to die, because a parent losing the child is one of the greatest tragedies in life. And her child dies, and absolutely heartbroken and devastated, she goes to the Buddha and says, and she takes her child with it and says, I want you to bring him back to life. The Buddha said, well, that's really, really difficult. And she said, I plead with you. You're the Buddha. Can you bring him back to life? And the Buddha says, well, I might be able to, but you need to bring me some mustard seeds. And the Buddha, very compassionate, but says, if you bring me mustard seeds, we'll see what we can do. And the Buddha said, mustard seeds? I can certainly get that. I might have some in my own kitchen. And the Buddha says, no, these need to be mustard seeds from someone from a household that's not known death. And the women think, well, there must be someone in this village. There must be some house in this village that doesn't know death. So she goes to the first house of a neighbor and knocks on the door and said, do you have any mustard seed? And the woman goes, oh, yes, I do. I can give you some. Has this house known any death? He goes, oh, do you not remember my husband died last year? And the woman goes, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm dealing with grief. I'm so sorry. So she goes to the next house and knocks on the door. Do you have any mustard seeds? She said, yeah, we've got mustard seeds. Would you like something? And they bring them out and said, does this house know anyone who's died? She goes, oh, yes, my grandmother died a couple of years ago. And she went around all the villages and knocked in every house, and every house had known death. And the woman was devastated, goes back to the Buddha and says, I can't find this mustard seed fruit from a house where no one has died. So the Buddha says, come with me. And they go out and they sit by a tree throughout the whole night in silence, just breathing in, breathing out. Then the next morning, the woman turns to the Buddha. I now understand. Suffering is part of life. Everyone experiences this death, experiences death and sadness. And I can't bring my son back. And I need to let go of my hopes. I can grieve in my sadness. I can be angry. I can be disappointed. I can be heartbroken. But I need to let go of that attachment to my son's living body. And I think many of us who've had big losses in our life can relate to that. That desperation for something to be different. We do not want to lose this loved one that means so much to us. We want them to be back in our lives. And we cling to that, even though rationally we know it, emotionally we can't just let that go. We cannot truly free ourselves from that suffering, but we can free ourselves from the suffering of that hope that's unrealistic of bringing the person back. We can tell their stories and bring their spirit back with us. We can share jokes. We can be angry at them. We can even maybe forgive them if that's something we need to do even in their death, but we cannot bring their living body back to us. And that can help free our emotions. And in the Hindu tradition in India, they've got this amazing idea of one of the reasons they burn the bodies when the body's dead. They want the soul not to feel attached to the body. They burn the body and then they take the ashes and they scatter it in a river, rivers that flow into the sea, so the ashes get dispersed. And they never keep the ashes in the home because they do not want the soul to be attached to the body or to be attached to the home. They want to give that soul freedom to move on, to go towards nirvana, to go towards heaven. But through breaking the attachments of the soul to the body, to the material, it gives the soul freedom. That's a really powerful idea. Even the soul has this attachment to the material, and can we break that? Because one of the struggles with these attachments, they can stir up negative emotions, they can stir up hatred, they can stir up anger, they can stir up fear. And that's what the Buddhists are questioning. Can we break those attachments so that we can break those negative emotions around what happens to us? Yes, sadness is understandable. Yes, griefness is understandable. But we do not want to get stuck there by hoping for someone, for attaching to an outcome that cannot happen. So what does this mean for the love we have for that person? The Buddhist Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh said that we must love in a way that the person you love feels free. You must love in a way that the person you love feels free. So love in a relationship, love a person. What does it mean for a person feels free? Does that mean they feel free not to meet our expectations that we project onto that person, that that person feels free to change or not change. Love that person so that they are not how we want to be, they are how they want to be, and not some idealized version of that person. Are we willing to let them go? So do we have the freedom? We love them enough to let them go? Because I think many of us have seen our loved ones suffering tragically. It can often be hard to let them go, but sometimes we do need to let them go. We need to let them die. We need to let them leave. We need to let them change. And that can be a lot of suffering for us, but it can be liberating for them. And that is a profound love, where we love someone to be freed who they truly want to be. Brene Brown, the sociologist, often talks about this idea of foreboding joy, and this idea that we are so caught up in the joy may end, or we're still struggling with struggles we've had in the past, that when joy comes, when it hits us in that present moment, we cannot fully enjoy it. And I think there's an element of attachment or detachment about that. Can we detach ourselves from the struggles of the past? Can we detach ourselves from the fear or concern about the future to live fully into that present moment through the joys that it can bring? Can we let that go, the past? Can we let go our hopes for the future go, to be fully present, to enjoy this present moment? And I think if we can adopt more of an attitude of non-attachment, it allows us to enjoy the present moment fully. There's another beautiful story from the Buddhist tradition about two monks who come to a river that they need to cross, and they're going to lead worship. And one of the ideas in the Buddhist tradition is, once you have prepared and purified yourself, you should not touch another human being. And they come to a river, and there's this young woman who's waiting to cross the river, but the river's quite deep and she's quite small. And she says, well, one of you carry me across the river. And the older monk says, yes, sure. And the younger monk said, but you can't. You've purified yourself. You're about to lead worship. You cannot defile yourself by touching that young woman. And the older monk picks her up, carries her across the river, places her down the other side, and without even thanking him, she walks off. So the two monks walk along in silence. And the younger monk kind of tensing and getting angry, and the older monk can tell, but he's not going to say anything. He just walks along, almost feigning the dismissiveness to the young monk. And eventually the young monk said, I'm really mad. I can't believe you did that. You actually carried that woman, and you defiled yourself, and you're going to be leading worship. And the woman didn't even thank you. And the older monk looks at him and said, why are you still carrying the woman? I put her down at the river's bank. Why are you still carrying her? And the young monk thinks about it like, oh, you realize he'd been carrying this burden that this other monk had let go. And the monk said, I carried that woman across the river because it's the right thing to do, not because I was looking for gratitude from the person. It would have been nice, but I had to let go of that. I took my action regardless of outcome because the action was right. The action was moral. The action that I do gives me hope for the world, not because of the response from other people. And I think that's powerful on two sides, that he had let the burden go of both physical burden of putting it down and the burden of having expectations from that woman around what was happening. I think that's really important. It's like engaging in our actions regardless of outcome. And I think we can learn a lot about that regarding love. He said, love someone so that you that they can be free. It lets go on expectations. We love the person for our action, not for the outcome, not for what we expect in return. Because attachments come with strings attached. Love does not. And our Unitarian Universalist tradition strongly believes in this idea of unconditional love. Our Universalist side of the tradition says that we love all humanity. We put the love of all humanity at the center of our religion, and that is unconditional love. But as long as we have sense of attachments, as long as we have expectations for loving someone, then we are attached, we are going to be disappointed. I can absolutely promise you that your loved ones are going to disappoint you, and that is okay because you disappoint them. And that's okay. We have to let go of these attachments we have if we really want to fully embrace our idea of unconditional love. And that's where Buddhism's idea of non-attachment can help us to live more fully into our Unitarian Universalist faith. Love isn't about control. It isn't about certainty. It's about appreciation and giving. And paradoxically, non-attachment leads to the purest form of love, a love that recognizes inherent beauty and values the person, while also recognizing that each moment with that person is precious because of the uncertainty of the future. Each moment is desperately precious because we do not know what the future brings for either of us. We have to get away from the idea, I would love them if only. I love them. I love you. And as we say in the Unitarian Universalism, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. That is the unconditional love that's at the heart of Unitarian Universalism. And by liberating ourselves from the sense of attachment, I believe we can more fully embrace our Universalist tradition of the unconditional love of all